Hey everybody, I'm Mark Buzz, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
I'm Anna Bugs.
Today we're going deep into the world of bugs that look like cockroaches.
Specifically here in California.
We're taking a cue from this really cool article by Simple Pest Management.
That's right.
If you're in California and maybe you're battling a pest problem or you're just curious about what's lurking around,
Yeah.
you're going to want to stick around because by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to spot a real cockroach from all those harmless mimics.
Yeah.
And if you like what you hear today, be sure to follow and like the show.
And check out Simple Pest Management on social media.
Now, what's the first bug that throws people off, Anna?
Well, one of the biggest culprits has to be water bugs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they've got that same oval-shaped body, the long legs. They really play the part.
They do have that certain je ne sais quoi, don't they?
Yeah.
But here's where things get interesting. True water bugs, like the name suggests, are aquatic. So unless your living room has suddenly become a swimming pool, chances are that roach you saw might be something else.
Exactly. And it's important to know that some of these water bug imposters, like the giant water bugs,
Oh, wow.
can actually pack quite a bite. So admiration from a distance is probably the best policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating how these bugs have evolved to resemble roaches. Makes you wonder, what's the evolutionary advantage there? Are they trying to scare off predators by mimicking a less desirable bug?
That's a great question, Mark. Mimicry in the insect world is a complex and fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah.
In some cases, like you mentioned, it's about deterring predators, but it can also be about blending in with their surroundings or even tricking prey.
It's like a whole undercover operation happening right under our noses.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of bugs that might have you reaching for the bug spray, let's talk about crickets.
Ah, yes. Those musical little creatures. But wait, how do they get mistaken for roaches? They hop around, they chirp. Seems pretty different to me.
You'd be surprised. Their long antenna and brown coloring can lead to some confusion, especially in dim lighting. But you're right, their chirping is a dead giveaway.
Yeah, it's almost like they're serenading you while you're trying to figure out if you need to call an exterminator. I've definitely been in my basement, heard that chirping and thought, oh no, here we go again. Only to find out it's just a chorus of crickets having a jam session. But that brings up a good point. We've talked about water bugs and crickets. What are some other common cockroach lookalikes here in California specifically?
Well, we can't forget about beetles. There are two types that often cause confusion: ground beetles and June bugs.
Okay.
Ground beetles especially have that shiny, dark exoskeleton that can resemble certain cockroach species.
I can see that. They both have that sleek, almost armored look. But what about Yune bugs? Aren't they those big, clumsy flyers that seem to love crashing into porch lights?
That's a perfect description.
What?
Their clumsiness is actually linked to their navigation system. They use the moon to orient themselves, and artificial lights disrupt their flight path, causing them to bump around.
So it's not that they're attracted to the light. They're just terribly disoriented by it. That's actually kind of sad, but also pretty funny to watch.
It is a bit comical. But it's important to remember that both ground beetles and June bugs are generally harmless and actually play beneficial roles in the ecosystem. Ground beetles are predators that help control other insect populations, and June bugs are important pollinators.
See, just goes to show not all bugs are bad. Now, there's one look-alike we have to address. The infamous palmetto bug. I feel like this one throws a lot of people off. What's the deal with these guys, Anna?
Yes, the palmetto bug. It's a bit of a trickster. The term palmetto bug is often used interchangeably with American cockroach.
Wow.
So technically they are roaches, but because they are often found in different habitats and exhibit slightly different behaviors, people sometimes assume they are a separate species.
So it's like calling a square a rectangle. Technically correct, but can lead to a lot of confusion.
Exactly. And this is where it becomes crucial to really understand the key characteristics that distinguish roaches from their lookalikes. The Simple Pest Management article outlines some excellent tips for accurate identification.
Okay, let's break those down. What are the main things people should be looking for to avoid misidentifying a roach?
Well, body shape is a good starting point. Cockroaches have that distinctive flat oval body,
Right.
while other insects like beetles tend to be more rounded or elongated.
So it's all about that streamlined pancake-like profile.
You could say that. Next, we have color variation. Now, this can be tricky because there are different cockroach species with different colors, but knowing those variations can be helpful. We have the light brown German cockroach, the darker brown Oriental cockroach, and the reddish-brown American cockroach.
Okay, so color can be a clue, but it's not always a definitive one. What about those antennas? They seem to be a recurring theme with these lookalikes.
Absolutely. Antennae are a fantastic way to differentiate cockroaches. They have those long, straight antennas, often as long as their bodies,
Wow.
while other bugs like crickets and beetles typically have shorter, more segmented antennae.
So it's like comparing a whip to a string of beads.
That's a great analogy. And then, of course, we have behavior and habitat.
Right, because even if a bug looks like a roach, it might not act like one.
What?
What are some behavioral differences we should keep in mind?
Well, cockroaches are notoriously nocturnal.
Oh,
You turn on the lights and they scatter.
yeah.
Crickets, on the other hand, will happily chirp away whether it's day or night.
Right.
And beetles tend to be slower movers, not those quick darting creatures that roaches are.
And in terms of habitat, cockroaches are all about those warm, damp, dark spaces, right? Under sinks, behind appliances, places where they can access food and moisture easily.
Precisely. While true water bugs will stick to their aquatic domains and crickets might be found in basements or garages, cockroaches are drawn to those areas that provide both shelter and sustenance.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the different cockroach lookalikes, those water bugs, crickets, beetles, and the tricky palmetto bug. And we've delved into the key features that can help us distinguish a real cockroach from its harmless imitators. But what about the telltale signs of a true cockroach infestation? What should people be looking for if they suspect they might have unwelcome guests?
That's a great segue, Mark, and something we definitely need to discuss. But before we delve into the nitty-gritty of cockroach infestations, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back with more bug-busting insights.
And we're back, ready to really dive into the nitty-gritty of cockroach infestations.
Yeah.
Before we get too creeped out, let's remember knowledge is power. And knowing the signs of an infestation is the first step to tackling the problem. So, Anna, what are some red flags that might indicate that roaches have decided to overstay their welcome?
Well, Mark, one of the most obvious signs is actually something we all try to avoid.
What's that?
Droppings, cockroach droppings, are these tiny little specks, almost like black pepper, and you'll often find them concentrated near food sources or in areas where they like to congregate.
I can already picture the little black dots sprinkled across my pantry shelves. Not a pretty sight. Are there any other clues we should be on the lookout for?
Absolutely. Another telltale sign is the presence of egg casings. Cockroaches lay these oval-shaped capsules called oothecae,
Oh, wow.
and they can be tucked away in crevices under furniture or near food sources.
So if I see something that looks like a tiny brown purse stashed in the corner of my kitchen, that's probably not a good sign?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's best to call in the experts if you spot those. And speaking of unwelcome discoveries, another sign of an infestation is shed skins. Cockroach nymphs molt several times as they grow, leaving behind those empty exoskeletons.
It's like finding a bunch of tiny insect ghosts hanging around your house. Okay, so droppings, egg casings, shed skins. What about that infamous cockroach smell? I feel like that's something you can't ignore.
You're absolutely right. A musty, oily, almost sickly, sweet odor can be a strong indicator of a cockroach infestation.
It's a smell that just makes your skin crawl, doesn't it? I can almost feel it in my nostrils right now.
It's definitely not a pleasant aroma, but the good news is if you do notice any of these signs, there are steps you can take to address the issue.
Okay, so let's talk solutions. What are some effective ways to prevent cockroaches from taking over our homes in the first place? Is it all about sealing up every nook and cranny, or is there more to it?
You're on the right track, Mark. Sealing up those entry points is crucial. Cockroaches can squeeze through incredibly small openings, so inspect your doors, windows, and any gaps around pipes or utility lines.
So it's like cockroach-proofing your entire house. Caulking guns and weather stripping become your best friends.
Exactly.
Okay.
And don't forget about leaks. Cockroaches are drawn to moisture, so fixing any leaky faucets or pipes is essential.
We don't want to create a cockroach oasis, right?
Definitely not. And let's talk about food, which is, of course, a major attraction for cockroaches.
So basically, my kitchen is a cockroach buffet, if I'm not careful.
Well, any kitchen can be vulnerable if food isn't stored properly. Make sure to keep everything in airtight containers, including pet food, and don't leave dirty dishes out overnight.
I'm guilty of that sometimes. But you're right, those crumbs and spills are like sending out invitations to a cockroach feast.
Exactly. And speaking of invitations, let's not forget about general cleanliness. Regular vacuuming, sweeping, and mopping can go a long way in preventing infestations.
So it's all about making your home less appealing to cockroaches. Removing those food sources, eliminating moisture, and sealing up those entry points. But what if, despite our best efforts, we still find ourselves facing a cockroach invasion? What happens when those DIY methods just aren't enough?
That's when it might be time to call in the professionals. Sometimes, especially if you're dealing with a large or persistent infestation, you need expert help to accurately identify the specific type of cockroach and determine the most effective treatment approach.
That makes sense. Different roaches might require different strategies, right? And that's where our friends at Simple Pest Management come in. They're the experts in all things pest control, specifically here in California.
Exactly. They handle everything from those tiny German cockroaches to those larger American roaches, and even those tricky lookalikes we've been discussing.
So if you're in California and those creepy crawlies are starting to feel like they're taking over, Simple Pest Management can come to your rescue. And remember, even if you're not sure if it's a full-blown infestation, if you're seeing those signs we talked about, the droppings, the egg casings, that musty smell, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Early intervention is key when it comes to pest control. But before we wrap things up, there's one more important point I want to emphasize, and that's the importance of accurate identification.
Right. We wouldn't want to go through all the trouble of treating for cockroaches if we're actually dealing with harmless ground beetles, would we?
Exactly. And on the flip side, we don't want to dismiss a potential cockroach problem just because we think it's a harmless cricket or water bug. Knowing how to distinguish those lookalikes from the real deal is crucial for effective pest management.
So the next time you see a suspicious bug scuttling across your kitchen floor, take a deep breath, channel your inner entomologist, and remember everything we've talked about today.
Observe its body shape, its color, the length of its antenna. Watch how it moves where it's hiding. And ask yourself, is it truly a cockroach? Or is it just a harmless lookalike going about its business?
Maybe it's just a water bug taking a detour from its pond, or a cricket looking for the perfect spot to serenade its sweetheart.
Or perhaps it is in fact a cockroach, in which case you've got the knowledge and the resources to take action. Remember, knowledge is power, and when it comes to those creepy crawlies, we've armed you with the tools to face them head on.
Well said, Anna. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of cockroach lookalikes. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of insects.
If you found this deep dive insightful, be sure to follow and like the show so you don't miss out on future explorations into the wonders of the natural world.
And don't forget to check out Simple Pest Management on social media for more great tips and insights on keeping those pesky pests at bay. Until next time, stay curious and keep on diving. So we've spent all this time talking about these cockroach lookalikes, but why should we care? Is it just about avoiding a bug identification mix-up?
It's definitely about that, but it's also about appreciating how diverse the insect world is. You know, all these ways that different species have adapted.
Yeah, it's like we're learning the secret code of nature.
Exactly. And that knowledge can help us make better decisions about how we interact with these creatures. Like if
Yeah.
we know that ground beetles are actually good predators, then maybe we shouldn't be so quick to reach for the bug spray.
Right, sometimes the bugs we think of as pests are actually helping to keep everything in balance.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, if we know how to identify cockroaches, we can deal with infestations before they get out of control.
It's about finding that balance between living with the good bugs and managing the ones that cause problems.
Exactly. And that reminds me of Simple Pest Management. You know, they provided all this info for our deep dive.
Oh,
They're an amazing resource for anyone who's dealing with pests, especially in California.
yeah, they can help you figure out what kind of bug you're dealing with, give you tips on how to prevent them, and help get rid of those pesky roaches.
And remember, folks, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these creatures, the better we can decide how to live with them.
So next time you see a bug running across your floor, don't freak out. Just take a minute and look closely.
Think about its shape, its color, its antenna. Watch how it moves where it's hiding. Ask yourself, is this a cockroach or just one of those lookalikes?
Maybe it's just a water bug lost on its way back to the pond, or a cricket trying to find a date.
Or maybe it is a cockroach. And if it is, you've got the knowledge to do something about it.
All right, everyone, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of cockroach lookalikes.
We hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you learned something, and maybe you even had a little fun along the way.
If you did, please follow and like the show and be sure to check out Simple Pest Management on social media.
They have so many great tips and tricks for dealing with pests. Until next time, stay curious and keep on diving.